Hi guys, back for this week's From the Notebook, and I get to talk about something really exciting this week, and it's called Beating the Post-Grad Burnout. I'm talking about a burnout that specifically happened to me after my undergrad years at Ithaca College, which, if you're new, is where I graduated from in May, so I'm only a recent grad, still trying to put my feet on the ground, and it's been hard. And one of the things that happened to me after I graduated from undergrad, and I mean, I'm sure the sentiment can be shared by anyone who's graduated from an intensive program in anything for any length of time, but after 4 years at Ithaca College, double majoring in English and writing, I felt burned out. One of the things that I burned out in, obviously, was reading. And I mean, obviously I run this channel, I do book club. I didn't have time to burn out in reading, so I actually released a video a little while ago called Finding the Joy in Reading, and trying to get back to that, and forcibly I had to kind of remember why reading for myself was fun, and because I didn't have a choice. You know, I'm here, I need to read to talk to you guys. I think that's why audiobooks came to be such a big thing for me, because I didn't have to focus my eyes on words. Because being in a writing major, being an English major, you're reading all the time, and being forced to do that much reading just constantly, I mean, it makes anything in excess no longer is fun. You know, you don't want to do it anymore. So, okay, there's the reading bit. I really have no great words of wisdom on the reading thing because I had to do it. I had to do it, and I'm there in moderation. I think sometimes with book club books, I just throw up my hands and wish that I wasn't, but you know, reading. If you want to know more about that, you can watch that video, because the burnout that I had to fix the most was my writing burnout. And this burnout didn't just occur after I graduated. My degree at Ithaca College in writing didn't focus a lot on genre fiction, which is what I like to write. I write YA, fantasy fiction, in case you haven't guessed by my actual YA fantasy, fascination that you've seen on this channel. And Ithaca College didn't really have a big focus on genre. And again, I released a video that talks about YA versus academia in that specific setting, and why I just felt really annoyed and frustrated with that a little bit. But again, it was a good thing, because throughout my 4 years there, I was constantly writing things that pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was writing things that I would not have written if someone hadn't told me to write them and that I would be graded on them. Specifically literary fiction and more literary fiction conventions that were used. And there's nothing wrong with literary fiction. I just personally don't find myself to be that inspired by it. I often find myself writing stories or coming up with ideas that are one step away from being a Nicholas Sparks novel, because I just don't find many fascinating questions to be answered in literary or realistic fiction. That's just me as a person. That's not where my ideas come from and, come to fruition as. Again, nothing wrong with it. I love reading literary fiction at times, but for me it was hard. It was hard to constantly push my brain to come up with something interesting that I didn't want to write, that I wasn't always that inspired to write. And it took a lot of the initial flush of joy, the joy of discovery, the joy of love and creating that I had writing in high school, out of it for a really long time. From the ages of 13 to 17, I was writing a novel a year, believe it or not, and only 3 of them were nano novels. The others were actually novels that I sat down and wrote. So I was doing a lot of writing, I was doing a lot of producing, a lot of creating, and I was having so much fun with it and loving the process, and definitely not doing it with the critical mind that I used during college, but just exploding with joy. And I lost that somewhere in the first 3 years of college, and I didn't think that I was going to get it back. If we're being honest, I would consider writing a fantasy piece over the summer, and I just couldn't do it. It wasn't fun anymore, and putting the effort in seemed useless when I would have to go back and be writing something else. But during my senior year, I had my senior project, which if you followed my Thesis Thursday feature on my blog, you know about. That was my chance to write a novel-length work of my own, any kind of topic, anything I wanted, as long as I just produced the words, produced the pages. And I was really lucky to find someone in the writing department who was willing to work with me on a YA fantasy piece. And I wasn't honestly sure if in the beginning I was actually going to do YA fantasy, because A, I hadn't done it in a while and it made me nervous, and B, I wasn't sure I would find anyone willing to necessarily work with me on that novel and give me the kind of support that I needed, which wasn't necessarily critical support. It was literally just personal support and telling me that I could still do this fantasy YA novel writing thing that I had not done in 3-4 years and thought I had lost. And the summer before that, I had TA'd for a high school writers institute at Ithaca College, and that was probably the experience that reminded me how much I missed it, because those high school students were so in love with what they were creating, and they had all these ideas, and most of them were YA or at least fantasy ideas, and that's what they were creating, and that's what they were passionate about, and they had that spark that I thought had died in me a little bit. So taking that spark forward and having this freedom to do this idea, and then finding a teacher who was willing to bring me along on this journey and support me in the way that I needed to be supported, which was just every week produce something for me. It doesn't need to be good, it doesn't need to be perfect, just produce, and produce what you love. I had presented her with a couple of ideas. One was more critically minded and one was this idea that I loved. And she heard me explain both ideas, and she goes, you know that there's only one that you can pick because that's the one that you really care about. So I picked that one, and I wrote it almost to the end. I got to 50,000 words by the time the semester was over, but I hadn't finished the novel. I was quite close, but not all the way there. And I said, all right, over winter break, I'm going to finish it. I'd done so much writing this semester before, I felt burned out. That month break that I had, I couldn't do it. And then I came back to school for the spring semester, and I was writing my other thesis, and I was writing all these other papers, and I couldn't do it. And I thought that spark that I had kindled and thought I had regained, it had just been fleeting, and it was just going to disappear again. And maybe this thing that I had in high school, I didn't have anymore. I could just get it back for certain occasions, but without that push of an academic grade or something, I just didn't have the natural oomph anymore. Fast forward to last week, which is September, by the way, so I hadn't touched this book since December, and then I picked it up again in September, and I just looked at my notebook and felt my hand twitch in that way that tells me I need to write something. I mean, I will pick up pens and doodle because I feel like I need to write. I will do this on my keyboard to pretend that I'm typing because I feel like I need to write. And finally, I picked up the notebook and I finished the novel. And it is a mess. But the thing about it is that I'm still in love with it. All those novels I wrote during high school, I would finish them and then realize how bad they were, and I wouldn't want to go back to them. I'd want to produce something new, try and produce something better. And with this novel, even though I know that it's not great, because it's a first drafts are never great, but I know now that I have the tools and the ability to make it better, and I can see the good parts in it, and I can see the bad parts in it. And because of those 4 years at Ithaca, I have all of these tools in my writer's toolbox to actually go back and fix it and know that I can make it better. And I have created something that is good enough for me to want to spend the time making it better. So it's just been this crazy reversal of just having months and years of thinking that I was just done with everything, to just having that weak push where I finished it and looked at the novel and just went, this is an actual possibility that I've created, and all that time that I wasn't producing, I was still learning, and I was learning something important, and that I still want to produce, I think, is also a big thing, that I still want to write, because post-grad burnout is real, and the day that I finished the novel, I put it down, and I just stared at the last sentence for a really long time, and I just almost cried because of how fantastic it felt. So I guess I just wanted to make this video to say, well, one, I finished a novel, go me, but also just, I finished a novel that I never thought I would be able to finish because I just felt so uninspired for so long. And I hadn't written for me in so long, and but I did it. I just needed to get past some unexplainable thing, and I found my way back to what makes writing so fantastic, and found my way back to being inspired and being creative. So yeah, I posted a status about this on Facebook the day that I finished the novel, and a couple people got back to me and said that it was something that they really needed to hear at that point in their life. And I know that what I'm saying right now is something that I really needed to hear for about 4 years. So I wanted to put this out there in case this is what you need to hear right now in anything. It doesn't have to be in writing, but just something that you love, because don't count yourself out quite yet. Because I had, and it was the saddest thing that I've ever felt, and here I am making this video and telling you that I got over that, and I wrote, and I don't know what it is, but I do know that you just have to hold on to that belief that you can be that person, that you can do what you want. It just might take time, and a long time might be the case, but it's gonna be okay. So if that is something that you need to hear, I really hope that you are hearing me, because I didn't hear myself for a really long time. But here I am, the novel to edit. So I'm gonna start working on that and head out. If this is something that rings true to you, please comment down below, talk to me. If you have tips and strategies for stuff like this, let people know down in the comments. I'm sure they'd also love to hear your advice. So yeah, that's what I have. Thanks guys. Bye.